the collection of solar bodies in a galaxy with dark energy around it. That's what I mean. That's the material mass. And so your eyes react to the energy that would come from the center, energy that comes from inside this female consciousness energy. Female, not gender, just nature. So you pick up some sand, and your hand would be metaphorically the dark energy that interacts with that sand. You can't pick up more sand than your hand can hold. So say you have a very complex amount of frequencies in this dark energy around Earth. Each different wavelength, if you break it apart into individual waves, you have a complex waveform, and even this whole concept of Fourier transforms, I'm sure it was an understanding of this. My voice could be broken apart into individual sine waves. Well, so each one is interacting with the energy emitted from, say, the core, and each frequency or wavelength is just that. It's how much is interacting. So it'd be like scooping my hand and grabbing this amount of sand and whipping it somewhere, and then scooping more, and it's always pretty much the same amount, right? Because that's what my hand can carry. Forget about a heaping pile of sand, but just say I grab the same amount every time because of what my capacity is. Well, if you have a longer wavelength, you could consider that as a larger hand, or say a shovel now that goes into the sand and grabs more of the sand. And then, a garbage can goes in and grabs some sand, and fills it up. It's how much is it's how much of the dark energy in the specific frequency is interacting with this center energy, creating an interference pattern. This is where atoms come from. Well, gee, why would we have a huge, heavy atom, and why would we have smaller atoms? And then the atoms themselves are complex waveforms making that up. So when you're dealing with all of the parts of the interaction, then you would be dealing with frequency and amplitude, or the wavelength and amplitude. So now you can start to consider things like, is the sand in my hand heaping or not? For example, the color red is the color red. How intense that color is depends upon the amplitude. Are you picking up a heaping scoop or not? That's what waveform interaction is. So you understand that the basics of it would be the size of the interaction. I see it in my head. It's very hard for me to say verbally, though. You have a complex waveform interacting with another complex waveform, and infinite complex waveforms interacting. Then the amplitude would be, in the case of a hand picking up sand, is it a heaping pile, or is it just a leveled off pile? This is the very nature of your thinking process. Amplitude and interaction of wavelength. It all comes down to that. You start to understand this energy is in frequency. Now, so is the energy in the proton nucleus. So is the energy in the sun. The sun has very basic components in it, or wavelengths. Ultimately, what I'm telling you is, if it's coming in pulse and everything is an interference pattern, and so on a different level it's an interference pattern which is making up the atoms that are burning in the sun, then it has to have a frequency, and the frequency is the interaction of the two energies. Therefore, the components of the sun, like everything, are in frequency. And what that frequency means in that case is frequency of existence, meaning the sun is there, and then it's not, and then it's there, and then it's not, and then it's there, and then it's not. It depends upon the specific atoms, so there's always parts that are there when others aren't, and such. But it's so the frequency to you would be at the atomic level, which is too fast for you to observe. So, if I'm telling you that the sun is there and not 100,000 times per second or something like that, you're not going to be aware of that because you are there and then you're not, and then you're there and then you're not. But why wouldn't you notice that? Because every component you're locked into as the floating finger is built upon that groundwork. If I took a wall and was able to vibrate that wall, say in your home, back and forth, 1 foot back, 1 foot forth, 1 foot back, so the distance of movement, and did that fast enough, you could just go lean up against that wall and you wouldn't even know it was moving. The wall would appear to be 1 foot thicker than it is. You wouldn't know. If I start to vibrate it to the point where you get to the threshold of your very vibration as a person, then you can't assess that. So this is where did I learn this? Again, you need to understand. Did I read this somewhere? No. Did I watch a lecture? No. Was it a professor or teacher that told me? No. Did I find it anywhere from information in this realm? No. Sitting in the backyard in the summertime underneath a tree. You see, the problem with religion is you all equate that with God somehow. And it works well on intelligent people, which are what they want to get rid of, because they see the people that are brainwashed by religion and equate that to God and think, well, gosh, if these are the people that believe in God, I can't believe in God. Because they don't think I ask them to explain it to me and they can't give me an answer, and then they abandon the whole thing altogether. The creator of the universe is anything but stupid. It is everything there is. And you cannot connect to the Creator via religion. It's impossible. So I asked a simple question. I said, okay, well, explain light to me then. Scientists say that light is either particle or waves, depending on how you look at it. It put into my mind, making me understand, okay, look at the sun. Now you know, as it's dealing with me, not in words, you can't understand the communication until you understand the command of love. The sun, make it very basic for you, okay? Let's get rid of the complex waveforms and multiple waveforms. Let's just say the sun itself is there, and then it's not, and then it's there, and then it's not, so many times per second. Well, what that means then is it's when it's emitting light, that is also in pulse. Because the components that make it up are there and not, and there and not. And then the sun is built up off of that, and it actually is there and not, and there and not, on a different level. So, the energy emitted from the interaction of atomic forces, when it leaves, takes the most efficient uses of space, which would be a sphere, and it spurts out based upon the buildup, okay, light emittance, and then a refractory, and then buildup of energy, and emittance, refractory, buildup of energy, emittance. So imagine like the spraying of bullets, not to put that image in your head, but I mean, that's just a bunch of raindrops coming down and a stream of, you can call them photons, whatever they've wanted, whatever label they've wanted to put on them. And there are other components too. So that would be particle, right? But how does that take a wavelength? And how many different carrier wavelengths are there? Well, they know it's a stream, which is a frequency. The number of photons, you learn that with the eyes, the number of photons hitting the eye per